Hey, everybody. Welcome to Keeping It Spiritually Simple. I'm your host, Sandra, and I have an awesome guest today by the name of Kelly Wagner. And she owns Edge Magazine, and she's got a radio show called Being Curious. And there's a lot of topics that come across her plate. But in our experience with each other on a friendly world, we've been talking about some stuff outside of the box. And that is a lot of the shadow issues that have been coming up in the forms of health issues, in the forms of thinking you're crazy or having things that you want to chalk up as ascension symptoms that may be a lot deeper than that. So we're just going to kind of jump into impromptu and intuitive chatting today. So just hang in there with us, and hopefully you get some value from this and we can get your comments. Well, welcome, Kelly. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
You're welcome. Happy Monday to this
Happy
daylight
Monday.
savings time.
Daylight savings. Oh, my
savings.
goodness.
We lost an hour. We're saving. I don't understand it.
Well, and maybe it's the last one. So we'll just sit on that.
Let's hope so. Let's hope so. So tell us a little bit about some of the things that are coming to your mind today that you might like to bring forward, and we'll just go from there.
Well, goodness. So published our Edge Magazine, edgemagazine.net. Check us out. We're very all over the place and very curious and creating a beautiful community. What's coming up? Wow. I'm thinking as we're going through this process, these emotional, these experiences, let's call them traumas, let's just go just intense experiences that are manifesting physically in the starseed area or the indigo. I mean, just what we're going through. Sorry, I start channeling when I'm with someone like you. So I'm just it's all just kind of coming in. It's that mind, body, spirit connection. We're going through this, but then we're also awakening to things that happened to us when we were younger, and like having to go through everything again. It's weird. I'm sorry. You dial in with what's coming in. I'm seeing all these pictures and numbers, but English is just not coming to me right now.
It's okay. As you know, I get everything in pictures too, and I have to find the vocabulary to describe them. So sometimes it takes me a little bit just to sit back and just kind of be with it. So, yeah, I think something happens to us in childhood, whether we remember or don't remember. And I know for me, when I work with people, sometimes they'll find answers through regression work or hypnosis work, right? That can put things to rest or bring things to light and create more trauma because they didn't remember in depth. But then the trauma is now in their control because it's happened afterwards. So we don't have to tax out the body as if it's happening right now. We can really work with what's going on through the memories. And that is coming up for a lot of people. Number one, I think to heal and to bring it to the forefront and to let other people know they're not alone. Two, I think it's to help lineages before and after. And three, I think it's to become to awareness that these things have occurred, whether we did it by design or it's been created as an obstacle to prevent us from moving forward with our open airways of transmitting energy and information. So I have found many, especially the younger ones that are probably anywhere from 15 to 30 now,
okay,
who have been squelched young and early on with no pathways. So there's severe anxiety, drug addiction, addiction to being OCD'd about things. Everything has to be perfect. There's something that takes them off of their flexibility and their path as flowing God spark children, as we all are, because
right.
We're working with the child within our adult selves, with our adult selves, and then our higher selves, which are our wisdom guides. And there's a lot happening.
So what do you think? Why do you think that's happening?
I think it has to come up to the surface to be cleared.
Okay.
It has to come up to the surface to have a final clearing. And I think that many have come before to hold the light and anchor the light, to keep these pathways open so that the next generation can come up and stay in their informational cords that get cut way too early with most kids, right? Their God spark gets cut, their flexibility gets cut, their resources of all their information. So the way my guides have shown me is that these so-called starseed children and so on are not coming in with more. They're coming in with more freedom to be able to hold their information and share their information and be able to grow within that informational pathways and teach others through it. Whereas someone like myself, who's an early on Indigo, grew up with, the hippies in the 60s. So they were attacked for being drug addict weirdos, right? You don't want to be like them. To your parents being more closed off and everything has to be cookie cutter. To still only finding my way within myself and then giving birth to one who could see the other side and then had a trauma around 6 years old that I was unaware of the actual trauma until 11th grade when her father and I were getting divorced. The trauma came up as if it had been a nightmare dream. And we were able to talk about it. And it was molestation from a babysitter. She was molested by a babysitter. And so as we were fielding through all of this stuff, I could literally go back to exactly when it happened. And then the night terrors and the anger and the optimal defiance, and so on. I could go all the way back to that. But in some ways, I was a little too late because then she went down the avenue of severe anxiety. We had to pull her out of school her senior year and have the school system homeschool her. And then right at the time when those memories came up, drugs came into the picture. Anything to mask it, stay out of my body and not face it. And so I deal with that as a mother, and it's very heart-wrenching. And I don't want to see other generations go through this.
Right.
So I want these things to come up for all of us to be able to handle, but not all of us have the psychological ability to deal with the nightmares that are coming up.
I don't even know how to respond to that. And I'm very,
it's not my story to tell. So
right?
I don't talk about her story.
Right.
I can only talk about what I work on for myself to clear the lineages.
How do you support that as a mother? Because we know that's there's past life coming through on that.
Well, I knew when she was little that she could see the other side, so she would talk about different things, right? And I will never forget the time she came running past me while I was blow drying my hair and says, "Mommy, mommy." And I said, "What?" She goes, "When you die, this is just a shell. You go up and out of it." And then another time I was trying to discipline her on something. And she said, "You can't discipline me. I was your mother in a past life." And so, a lot of this I had to handle under my own roof. I had an older daughter who was very grounded, a husband who was like very busy with work. So I really had to handle so much of this myself. And I knew that she was my mother on many lifetimes, and I lost her. I lost her due to her spiritual connection. So she was deemed, the witch, the mental illness, took her own life, was taken from me. And it was designed that I came in first so that I could be fully grounded and aware. So I've been hovering as an observer and trying to dive in whenever I can. Now, at this point, all I can do is text, "I love you." I can send her videos of myself. "I love you so much. I love you." talk to me, no matter what you're going through. But it's really hard when you don't live in the same state. So, and in some ways, that's good, because I would be driving. Just she breathing, kind of like what you do in the crib. They've napped too long. What's happening? Are they breathing? Which would then take me off my path as well. So I have to do a lot of work on myself with a lot of different healing modalities just to maintain. But I lose it. Like, I'm feeling it tear up right now.
I know.
Yeah. But I know there's a lot of people going on with this right now, and it's coming up. And a lot of it is to take people up and out of their missions, take them out of their physical body, and live outside their body and find things to be addicted to, or possibly exit the planet. And I think that these conversations need to come up so that we can say, you're not alone.
Yeah.
You're not alone in this. And how can we talk about it without getting shadow banned or banned on YouTube for bringing up conversations that aren't so pleasant? Right? I mean, look at our in the 90s, what went on with the ADD, and it was this med and that med, and I fell right into that trap. But I thought I was being a good mother by asking all these questions. And it's like, oh, we find this epilepsy medicine works great on ADD. But ADD is new. So how does this, I don't understand. Oh, we're just supposed to try it? It's trial and error. So we fell into the pill factory. We fell into that whole blanket of, and why? Because we had a lot more kids come in after the harmonic conversion in 87. A lot more kids coming in with more awareness of who they are. And so what a perfect scheme to shut you down.
Right.
But the veils have thinned. A lot of work has been done. And we are now coming up with a lot more memories that we don't know what to do with. And a lot of them are very traumatic and affect us in today. Yes.
So when you work with clients, I just see that you create this beautiful safe space for people to unpack those memories.
Thank you. I believe I do, because I'm shown by the guides. And I just recently had a very well-known healer message me and say, you're the grounding of the star seeds. You're going to bring up all the generations and you're going to bring them together. That's what I see. And she said, I started crying when I was seeing it, because I was seeing your work. And so, I'm just kind of one of those people that's one client at a time. I don't have a big following. I'm not out there trying to brand myself and be something I'm not. And if I can help one person a day or two people a day or whatever I can max out, I'm happy with. But yes, but we have to address what's going on with everyone.
So how do we start? How do we offer our services?
I think we have to just start talking as humans of what we're experiencing. I think we need to bring up the struggles that we're having and create some sort of support group that doesn't cost you an arm and a leg to join, for God's sake. I saw something recently that was like, if you're a parent of a starseed, join our group. It's only $110. It's like, what? I don't understand. Here's somebody that may not understand their child or wants to understand their child. It could be a grandparent of a child. And then you got to pay to join a what? Maybe cover like Zoom costs and things like that. But no, come on.
Right.
We need to start opening up and letting this fifth chakra express what the heart and the mind have been holding. And that's where we've been locked up. And we're getting locked up too. We're seeing more addiction. We're seeing more illnesses occur within individuals and people, like masses of stuff happening. And it's like, okay, what's going on in the bigger picture here?
Well, absolutely. And so many people either want to find a pill for it, or they work on the physical aspect of it, but they don't tie in the spiritual and the emotional and what did happen, knowing that that's all threaded through it. And that's truly how you heal. And bringing that up is so important.
Yes, but then, you know, that also brings me to mind of within conversations that we've had too, is that there are people out here who are going to talk about your shadows coming up.
Mm-hmm.
And it's things that happened in the past. They're not real in this moment. So you just have to kind of let them go. And some dreams will come forward, right? Some visions, some feelings will come forward where like, oh, I felt like that was just yesterday. And but you know you're in a different lifetime. You can see your clothes, you can see the environment, whatever. So what I will do is I'll chalk that up to, okay, thanks for the information. If you want me to know more, let me know more. However, there are things that are coming up that may look like they happened in another lifetime. They actually happened in this lifetime. And they're being held in your emotional, your mental, your spiritual, your etheric, and it is hitting the physical body as if it's happening right now. And it's manifesting itself in dis-ease. And that is then again freaking people out because it's like, oh my God, what happened? What's wrong with me? How did I get this? What's going on? Right. And so everything's being placed in your path by design, but at the same time, you have to take action and courage to dive in to what's going on and ask, is this here and now? How is this affecting my body right now? And you have people, oh, it's just ascension symptoms. Well, maybe it's a little bit more than that. Right. Maybe it's the ascension symptom that's over here in this particular pain body, and it's affecting this. And the pain is so great that it prevents you from being on your path because it distracts you from focusing on what you're here to do, plus maintain your 9-to-5, roof over your head, paying the water bill, feeding your children, clothing yourself, right? It actually interferes with the necessities of life. And this is just as important, if not more.
Mm-hmm. Oh my goodness. Yeah. So what do we do? How do we start the conversation?
Well, I think we just be honest with what we feel is happening on an individual basis, because, you know, individually we're collective, right?
Right.
So what we speak out and begin to work within ourselves, we're healing within our brothers and sisters. We're healing within our DNA, previous, present, and future.
Yeah.
And these things that are creating harm, that are preventing us from having a productive, healthy life, much less having some passion and some joy, right? Getting a Sunday off to spend with your family. I'm sorry. Why did you have to hump so badly for 7 days to have one day that you're really spending recuperating?
I know.
And you're never really recuperating, right? It's cumulative. The stress catches up.
It does.
You know, they say sleep is cumulative, right? So if you get a little extra on this time because you're going to be out this weekend or whatever, I think that's a mind game. I do. I don't know about that scientific information.
I don't,
because there are times where I'm like, where's my sleep bank? I need to take something from my sleep bank. I can't find that sleep bank anywhere. I'm like, where the hell is it? Right. You know, so this cumulative thing about, you know, that, I mean, I understand it on different ways. Take really good care of yourself. So if a energetic or a virus of some sort is a tsunami around you, you stand tall. I get that. I do. And sleep is part of that. But we're all getting hit. A lot of us are getting hit with physical illnesses right now because, or little weird anomalies. Like I think I was talking about the little fat cell on my belly. Mm-hmm. And then I lost weight and I could still see it. So the doctor was like, let's just test that. It just seems like it's just a little fat cell. It's not a lymph node. It's not anything else. Nothing to worry about. You know, you get the ultrasound, even the ultrasound tech who's not supposed to tell you anything. So don't think it's anything to worry about. And then you get the call. This is we can't identify this. So we need you to do another test and possibly a biopsy. And you're like, what? And then internally, I'm like, everything's okay. No matter what it is, everything's going to be okay. Now, there is part of that. Oh, crap. I didn't see that coming, right?
Right.
And then what does that do? It takes your nervous system everywhere, distracts you from everything. No matter what you're trying to do, you're still consumed with this. I got to have this test. I'm not going to rest until this test is done. Oh my gosh. And I think that's part of the syndrome that many of us are finding ourselves in or about to go in. It could be with a loved one, could be with ourselves. It's like, how does this occur? And it's all from the emotional body and traumas that are stored within that subconscious that hasn't been let out. Because going back to what we just talked about, regression work, right?
Right.
When you bring up a trauma and you start talking about the trauma, your brain, your body doesn't know the difference between right now in this second to when the trauma occurred, whether it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. That's a physiological response, which is why a lot of people don't like to talk about painful situations.
Right.
Because they haven't dealt with them. So their body has that response, that fight or flight response, which creates heavier and heavier densities within the stress levels, bringing it all back up again, taking you back, some people back to ground zero.
Right.
And that's what the stuff I think that we need to begin to address. How do we help on a larger scale? How do we help?
Because going back and re-experiencing as it's just happening, I mean, that's a big one for people.
It's huge.
And then there's your roadblock, and then that's why everyone blocks and protects themselves. And I see when I'm working with clients, lately I've seen a lot of people that are almost like Rapunzel in the big tower that they've built themselves, and there's a moat around, and there's 4 drawbridges, and it's whether people want to have their drawbridges down or not. And I think that's more tied with here. I also see people wearing scarves, and some people will have these light scarves, but then others, the scarves, it's round and round and round. So it's working on those scarves and getting that so the 5th chakra can open up, and then we can talk. But gosh, I mean, if you want to have the conversation, think of all these different things we have to do with people that are just starting to like, okay, now what do I do? Or they have been medicating, or trying to stay out. Now what I'm seeing is it's almost that corded, the bubble that you want to just stay corded to the body. And that's where you can just live in this bubble of numbness, whether it's whatever, pick your poison, right? And it could be running too much. It could be drinking too much. It could be anything that you stay out here, because you don't have to be in and then feeling it. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that just made sense.
No, it made total sense, because it's that, the visions I was getting last week was, and I was going to do a video on it, or I did do one, and it's in my video hold box, is a lot of people prefer to live outside their body because they feel more comfortable in what they think is that spiritual body, but it's really a protective mode. So, when we come in as babies, we come in and we're in that delta sleep brainwave till 2. And then we go into that theta, that dreamy space, that real super dreamy space that we get before we go to sleep, or we're just in a hypnotic state, or we're just half tired, or whatever it is, staring off, and like kids do, stare off in space. What's going on around you, but you're out there in that theta. And then around 6 or 7, then you're brought up into the beta, which is being aware of your surroundings, but still being in that creative, I think that's alpha. And then beta is your 10 and 2, got to do, fully aware, fight or flight, protective, right? But so many of our children are taken out of that before they've even been able to integrate their entire bodies. Because what did we start doing 30 years ago, 40 years ago, when women's rights and women wanted to work, or they had to work, or divorces started to occur? and each parent had to work, was we didn't just now have daycare, we had pre-daycare, preschool. Yeah. We have all the stuff. And then it's like, don't put your kid in kindergarten without doing preschool, because they need to know some of these math and problems before they get in here. And it's like, I'm sorry, I thought kindergarten was an integration stage to get them from home into play with some learning before they got into first grade. But we're skipping all these steps. We're skipping them. We're skipping so many steps. And so we're running around not integrated. So on top of the programming, let's hide some sugar in here. Let's make drinking and smoking fun. You know, let's make this look more okay. And so people begin to continue to have permission to live out there, to live out there, and to avoid what's painful for them. And that's being in the physical. And the physical is suffering. The physical has to house everything, as a spirit truly cannot experience what it came here to experience if it isn't fully intact in this avatar. Because the spirit is the experiencer through the physical avatar. The soul is the record keeper and the reminder of who you are, why you're here. And so there's a lot of disconnect in all of those.
So how do we start connecting? What do we do?
Gosh, I didn't even think about that one. Let me tune in here.
Tune in.
There's so much.
I was about to say, if you get anything else while you're tuning in, just go for it. Let it fly.
Yeah. And by the way, if you ever see someone like Kelly and I kind of look off a little bit, it's because we're looking at pictures, we're getting downloads, but we're also mindful that we're on a video. We're like, 5 seconds to you might seem really long, but to us, it's like a thing, but it takes a little while to integrate. And so I think the first thing is what's coming to me is to clear this fifth chakra by just letting this information out, even if it's a very personal experience. I just let two out. I talked about my daughter, who I do not talk about in the public arena. And then I just talked about my own personal experience of what I'm going through with this abdominal lump. And I just lost a friend last week who was one of 6 children, all of them extremely active and healthy. And she wound up with pancreatic cancer, and she fought it and then couldn't anymore, and still didn't understand why her,
Right.
And so before this becomes more of death sentence between emotional, mental, physical, etheric, and the medical system, right? We need to look into, first of all, we need to talk about it. Right. We need to bring this to the surface and deal with what's coming up, the emotional body of what is coming up. And that in and of itself can help the physical body begin to release what it may be holding on to in a protection mode. Because whenever we're in protection, we're locking up. We literally lock up. And then we're taught to sit. Many of our jobs are sitting. So our lymphatics, which are supposed to be taking out all the debris, are getting all clogged up. It's like throwing things down the sink, but you never really rinse it properly.
Right.
And that is what's happening in our physical bodies. And then we get in front of these electronic screens. And, we buy product that we think is healthy, only to find out there's hidden stuff in there that wasn't, So I think the first thing to do is begin to have that expression through that fifth chakra and align this heart and this mental with the informational pathway that we have here.
Right. It's really important. So what do we do with people that might not know why they're locked up, and they've buried the memories really, really deep, and they are manifesting physically without, it's like skipping that step, honoring what you said about that step. How do we help them unpack it?
Well, I'm only one practitioner, and I will tell people, just to make a quick session with me so that we can kind of like look at things and then see if you're ready to open the window up. Because people have to really be ready to open the window, and they have to be ready to accept what they need to release and what they need to bring in.
Well, what happens when you open the window, right?
Yeah.
Because opening the window is
the painful part. Because you can always shut it at any time when things get tough. It's like therapy. You get into therapy and then you get your soup stirred, and you're either going to have enough courage to stop, drop, sit, connect with the breath and connect with all of it and say, I am here to be the commander of my life. And I'm not letting go when the going gets tough, right? If that was the case, ships wouldn't make it to another port because of bad weather, right?
Right.
We wouldn't get from here to there because of traffic. We'd say, I can't, I'm not. But every time we give up on something that we're doing for what we think is ourselves, we're giving up on those around us and the collective. Because it just takes one person to step up and say, I'm the commander of this avatar. I'm going to open that window. I'm going to own what comes through, no matter how freaking awful and painful it is. I'm going to dissect it. I'm going to figure out how I can connect with other people to help me with this. And I'm going to do this because, number one, I'm helping my children. I just helped my parents. I'm helping my brothers and sisters, DNA and DNA of the collective.
Right.
And so many people like to just put it on someone else's desk to do, or they feel put upon. And it's like, that's not my job to fix everybody else. You're not fixing everybody else. You're coming in and you're working with the wires that might be untangled, that need to be untangled. And you're working with those. And when you do that, you become a stronger person. And then you actually strengthen your children, your parents, your siblings, and the DNA of the collective.
I was about to say, I just saw it go backwards and forwards, and so I keep seeing Ho'oponopono. Do you practice that?
I do.
I just keep seeing it. If you keep talking, I'm just like, Ho'oponopono.
Yeah, it's just a big thing about forgiving. It's just about forgiveness. It doesn't even, I remember probably 20 years ago, and something came up where it was looking at a historical event within my meditation. And for some reason, I went back to like maybe Custard and the Indians, right? Like this wartime. And I saw myself on the Custard side. And then there was another time where I saw myself on the other side. And I realized that I have played so many different parts in incarnations that all I could do was ask for forgiveness. This is long before Ho'oponopono came into my life.
Yeah. Right.
I asked for forgiveness, whatever part I played that created harm, out of ignorance or out of whatever reason it was, that I loved myself and that it made me a stronger human being today, knowing that we can't pick sides. We got to be the light. Let the light show us, because we're always going to be different sparks in different situations. And we have to have compassion for it all.
So I'm going to take a step back. I had a really hard time with forgiveness, the word forgiveness. I was okay with compassion. I was not good with forgiveness, because I took it as, if I forgive someone, then I was a victim and they were a perpetrator of some level, and that I'm giving away my power. And I just struggled with it. And then I was introduced to Ho'oponopono and started with that forgiveness of self and then others. But if you would have asked me about forgiveness even 2 years ago, I would have been, nope, compassion all day long, but nope, no forgiveness. Tell me a little bit more on why I was like that.
Because it opens the floodgates to the emotional side of it that we can't face. And because we're angry, especially if it's comes from somebody who should have known better,
Yep.
That may have created harm in our world. And we as parents now see the difference between how we are with our children. And so we can look at other beings, whether it's parents, coworkers, whatever it is, and we can hold that anger towards them. We think that anger is going to affect them. And in some ways it does, but it affects us even worse because it boomerangs. It boomerangs right back. And it will find a space in your emotional or your physical house that may be a little weakened. Maybe, you know, it's not, maybe like, for example, if you've got musculoskeletal issues that are DNA lineage, maybe it hits you there. If you've got stomach, might hit you there. Like, not every organ is going to be like, oh, I'm your warrior. They try, but there are parts of you that are not as strong as others just because of your DNA, right? Because it all gets passed down because the lineage before us may not have worked on their stomach issues. So it's passed down into the embryo and into this life.
I haven't heard. Ooh, that was good. Yeah.
Okay. So we inherit what others have not faced. And we came into this lifetime, in my strong belief right now, what I've learned is to be the walking, living example that we can go through all of these records within ourselves. We can clear them without pointing the finger of its origin. And, you know, it's like we get older and wiser, right? And we look back at our 20s and our 30s as some really ridiculousness. And we really don't want this next generations or the generations that we've given birth to carry that. We don't want them to carry that. So we physically will go out and get a better job, have more money, get them to a better schooling and buy better food and so on. But we're not working with the emotional components that we've passed down. And so the first 10 years of a child's life, we look at it, oh, just like your dad, just like your mom, oh, and then you're like, oh crap, that doesn't serve when she gets to be here or he gets to be here, right? Okay, I need to stop, drop, sit, connect with this and see if I can dissolve it so that I can also dissolve it in the ones who are physically here, not to mention the ones that are going to be coming through. So for me, when I learned all about karma many, many, many moons ago, and so working on my own, right? I then began to really tap in and be extremely mindful of all of my actions so that I didn't create something that I had to turn around and disassemble or say I'm sorry for later. Right. I wanted to stop that now. And that's what I call doing harm. You know, we really have to pay attention to our moods because it emanates out. The energy emanates out. Kids pick it up. Even if they're not even home, they pick it up. And as babies, they're just sponging it, right? And we have to stop that. And when you were talking about the anger thing, a vision came through to me. And it's like, you put a basket down and then your kid comes running and they trip over it and they really hurt themselves. And you go and you just love them. And I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to put that there, blah, 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 blah. Right. And then maybe you don't move the basket and they fall again. And the second time you're like, didn't you see it the first time? Didn't we just go through this? Right. And so now you're pushing the blame back on them. But then let's say we put the basket down, but we're the ones that trip over it. Do we just go, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry I put that basket there. Now look, no, we get angry. We get angry at ourselves. And so we pour even more into our emotion. We are the first people to kick our own asses all the time. We are the hardest on ourselves. And again, our DNA just soaks that right up and it gets passed right down. So when you have a child that's like, I'm ugly, I don't look good, I don't feel good, and you're like, where on earth are they getting this? This is bizarre. And it's like, they got it from you because you stored it somewhere. And so now what do? You need to face the mirror and face yourself so that you can recreate by dissolving and resolving what it is you may have placed on yourself that may have come from. And that's what a lot of inner child work is about, is you're really going back in there on the inner child and working with that. And, take a box of tissues with you because you're going to need them, because that inner child work is, it's very powerful. It's very, very powerful. And it doesn't have to be structured. When 2020 came up and I thought, this is my turn to actually not have to go out there and do my job. I can stay here and really work on communication. And I used to take myself to my massage table and lay on it every day and ask for what was coming up. And one day, inner child stuff came up. And I literally saw myself at a certain age, just head on the table, looking up at my adult self. Well, that just brought tears to my eyes. And then I saw my mother, and then I saw her mother, and then it went back to her mother, who I don't know. And we had this whole dialogue of things that released so much that I couldn't even reach for a tissue. I just let it just
flow,
pour and pour and pour. And then a couple of days would go by and I'd get back on that table and I would bring that memory up. I say, is there anything else between those 5 lineages, right? Anything. And I would see if anything was coming up, because I wanted to get every drop out. Because what I saw was a smile on that great grandmother, a smile on that grandmother, a smile on my mother, a smile on my inner self, smile on my adult self, which turned around and released it for my children. Whatever that was, it didn't have to have a particular thing. It doesn't have to be so structured and complicated.
Right.
It's giving yourself permission. And then maybe we can work on what's going into the physical body that's creating the dis-ease and blow the medical system out of the water by releasing all this and healing ourselves.
That's so powerful and amazing.
We are amazing human beings. We've just been taught that everything's outside of ourselves, that we have to go everywhere else to be fixed. Can't fix it ourselves. Who are we? What? Who am I? I'm just one person. Yeah. One person that starts, and then you get a second. The next thing you know, the bucket starts to fill. And you get more and more people wanting to work on similar stuff to heal themselves and to heal others.
Well, I even just see like a spark in like a forest fire. It's one spark, and then it all can do that. And forest fires are bad, but they also burn out and clear so new growth can come up. Yes. I'm just using that as an example. I'm not
no.
wishing a forest fire on anyone, right?
I understood your example, and I understood why you just self-corrected there, because you would think that's destruction, right? Well, it's destruction of old patterns and things like that. So it's just a metaphor. It isn't really creating a real physical fire where those things are happening. But yes, after a forest fire occurs, doesn't have to be from a cigarette or somebody's grill. It can be from the heat, and that these certain areas are prone to them.
Or lightning strike.
Exactly. Right. Lightning strike, anything, and then that is all cleared out and new begins to come up every time. And that's what you want. We want to work with these. We can't get to, and I like to look at it too, as these new seedlings that are coming up through these forests are really where our God self is, without all the old programming.
Right.
So we've had a lot of distractions to keep us from that, including all these illnesses that have been deemed, well, you got that from your great grandmother, or, oh, that runs in the family, or you got that because you were exposed to something, 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 right? But so much of that we actually have control of by first starting with this physical, beautiful God source avatar and working with all the stuff that's stored in there, and go through it. At least go through it. It's like going through the attic. You can decide, oh, trash bag, giveaway, keeper, treasure. But you can't do that if you don't know what's stored, because we live on 95% the subconscious. That is what runs our life. Right. Only 5% of the conscious, 10 and 2, deliberate is where
we have to Marie Kondo
change that. Yes, girl. Yes.
Right. If you think about it, like we moved 2 years ago, and it's like I everything now is I just grab it and I'm like, do I love it? Yep. Okay, great. Yes. Do I not love it? Oh no. Can that go somewhere else? Sure. So if we could actually go into our and do that. Wow. I just felt this little boop.
Well, you just released something saying that. And anyone that listens to this video is going to feel the same thing. Is that we're too busy holding on to things that don't serve any purpose anymore.
Right.
It serves no purpose anymore. And you could say that it's not for your highest good, but until you get in there and you make the decision of what's a keeper, what's a giveawayer, what is absolutely needs to be dissolved and resolved and released.
Yeah.
And you don't want to release it so that somebody else walks right through all your stuff, right? You want to work on, am I handing this to Saint Germain for the violet flame? Am I giving this back to the light? Am I dissolving it through forgiveness, which is just the most simple thing, is you know what? This particular thought or something, I had no idea was storing in there, but I learned so much from it. Thank you for letting me get in there and sort through it, and figuring out if I wanted it or not, because there's a lot of superpowers in there. There's a lot of superpowers. It's not all junk. I will tell you that. And I'm not even going to get into a lot of the other stuff that could be stored in there, but
right.
You got to start with just one memory, one something. You have to be really honest with it. And then you'll feel the huge release.
So powerful. Thank you so much for having me on today.
Oh my goodness, Kelly.
We need to do this like once every couple months. I wound up
talking more than you, and it was but stay put, and then we'll just end this. So everybody, I want you to tune in to Radio 950, AM 950, Being Curious Show. Get onto Edge Magazine, get their newsletters, and tune into that. And I'll have those links in the description. And if you guys are ready to open up the window, there's so many things that this magazine and the show offers you. And then also I'll have my links in the description. If you choose that you would like a session with me, I'll make myself available. All right. So much love to everybody. And Kelly, thank you for being here. I really appreciate you.
Right back at you. Thanks for having me.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.